The clock on my nightstand glowed 12:47 a.m. when Marin's phone lit up beside her pillow. She stirred, grabbed it with practiced stealth, and I watched through barely open eyes as she slipped out of bed. The area code was local. I knew it by heart. My brother's number. I'm Felix Roard, and I've spent 38 years watching my older brother take everything he wanted. Growing up, he got the bigger bedroom, the newer bike, the college fund. Our parents called him the golden one behind closed doors, though never where I could officially complain. When we became adults, nothing changed. He got the family business connections, the prime real estate deals, the approving nods at Sunday dinners. But he'd never taken my wife. Not yet. Marin whispered into the phone for exactly 4 minutes and 12 seconds. I counted. When she returned, she slid back under the covers like nothing happened, her breathing settling into the rhythm of fake sleep within moments. She'd always been good at pretending. I waited until her breath deepened, then slipped downstairs to my workshop. My contracting business had taught me patience, measure twice, cut once. This situation deserved the same careful approach. 20 minutes later, I was driving through the empty streets of our main town, past the shuttered storefronts and the old mill that had been converted into overpriced condos. My brother lived in the newest development, behind gates that were more for show than security. His house was a monument to everything I'd supposedly failed to achieve: glass and steel where mine was wood and brick, a circular driveway where mine was gravel. Marin's Honda sat in his driveway like it belonged there. I parked across the street and took photos with my phone. The timestamp would matter later. Then I drove home, made coffee, and started planning. By sunrise, I'd logged into every joint account we shared. Bank accounts, credit cards, the home equity line we'd opened last spring. Everything that required both our signatures was now frozen solid. I pulled our house listing from the real estate website and sent a legal notice to our agent. No sales, no refinancing, nothing without my explicit written consent. Marin returned at 6:30 a.m. with coffee and bagels from the place downtown, acting like she'd been out for an early morning run. She even had workout clothes in the car as props. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, kissing her cheek like always. "Sleep well?" "Like a rock," she replied, not meeting my eyes. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind with the house sale and everything." She nodded sympathetically, already moving toward the shower. "Don't worry about it. Everything will work out perfectly. Trust me." Trust. Right. I spent the morning at job sites, installing crown molding for Mrs. Henderson and fixing a sagging porch for the Kowalskis. Normal work, normal conversations, while my mind churned through possibilities. My phone buzzed twice with texts from Marin, casual messages about dinner plans and weekend errands, maintaining the illusion of domestic harmony. That afternoon, I redirected my paycheck to a new individual account and filed paperwork to block any major financial transactions without court approval. The lawyer, Ms. Lawton, raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. She'd handled my business incorporation and knew I wasn't impulsive. "This is pretty comprehensive, Felix," she said, reviewing the documents. "You sure about this level of protection?" "Just being careful," I replied. "Better safe than sorry." 3 days passed in this strange dance of normalcy. Marin went to yoga, met friends for lunch, and continued her midnight phone calls. I worked, came home, grilled dinner, and watched her performance with growing fascination. She was good at this, maybe too good. On Thursday evening, she announced she was meeting her sister for dinner at Rosario's, the Italian place by the harbor. I nodded, wished her a good time, and settled in to watch the game. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a notification from our credit card company. Transaction declined, Rosario's restaurant, $127.43. I almost laughed out loud. She came home furious, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. "What did you do to our cards?" "What do you mean?" I asked, not looking up from the television. "Don't play stupid, Felix. My card was declined at dinner, in front of everyone. It was humiliating. Huh, that's weird. Maybe the bank flagged something suspicious. You know how they get about unusual spending patterns. Her eyes narrowed. Unusual spending patterns? Well, you have been going out more lately. Different places, different times. The algorithms probably picked up on it. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew. Finally, she grabbed her purse and headed for the stairs. I'm calling the bank in the morning, she said. This is ridiculous. Good idea. I'm sure they'll sort it out. But we both knew they wouldn't, because there was nothing to sort out. The next morning, Maren was on the phone before I'd finished my coffee. I listened from the kitchen as she argued with customer service, her voice rising with each transfer to a new department. The explanation was always the same: account holder request, security hold, contact the primary account holder for authorization. Felix, she called sweetly from the living room. Could you come here for a minute? I found her holding the phone, her smile tight around the edges. The bank needs you to authorize removing the security hold. What security hold? The one you apparently requested. They won't give me details, but they said you called on Tuesday. I took the phone and spoke to the representative, confirming my identity and asking about the status of our accounts. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. Frozen solid. I'm sorry, I told the banker, but I need to keep these protections in place for now. We've had some concerns about account security. Maren's face went white, then red. After I hung up, she exploded. What the hell is going on, Felix? What concerns? What security issues? Nothing specific, I said calmly. Just being cautious. You can't be too careful these days. This is insane. I can't access our money. I can't pay for anything. How am I supposed to live? The same way you've been living. Nothing's changed. But everything had changed, and we both knew it. That evening, she made her move. While I was at Brady's house watching the Patriots game, she called my parents and painted a picture of financial abuse and controlling behavior. She told them I'd gone crazy, that I was hiding assets and trying to trap her in the marriage. My mother called at halftime, her voice sharp with disapproval. Felix, what's this nonsense about freezing accounts? Maren is beside herself. It's complicated, Mom. No, it's not complicated. It's cruel. She's your wife, not your prisoner. She's free to leave anytime she wants. Without access to her own money, that's not freedom. That's manipulation. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Mom, there are things you don't understand about the situation. Then explain them. Because right now, it looks like you're having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm protecting myself. From what? From your wife? From my wife and my brother, I thought, but didn't say. I'll handle this, Mom. Don't worry about it. We're having dinner Sunday, all of us. We're going to sort this out like adults. She hung up before I could respond. Brady handed me another beer and shook his head. Family dinners. Nothing good ever comes from family dinners. Tell me about it. You want to talk about what's really going on? I considered it. Brady had worked for my contracting business for 5 years, and we'd become genuine friends despite the employer-employee relationship. He was loyal, discreet, and had no love for my brother after an incident involving a bounced check and some harsh words. Maren's been visiting my brother at night, I said finally. I have photos. Brady's eyebrows shot up. No kidding. The golden one finally made his move? Looks that way. What are you going to do about it? I took a long drink and watched Tom Brady throw another touchdown pass. I'm going to let them think they're winning, right up until they realize they've already lost. Sunday dinner at my parents' house was an ambush disguised as a family meeting. I arrived to find Maren already there, sitting between my mother and brother on the living room couch, like she needed protection from me. My father occupied his usual chair, looking stern and disappointed. Felix, my brother said, standing to shake my hand with exaggerated warmth. Good to see you, little brother. He was 42, 4 years older than me, and had never let me forget it. Where I was lean from physical work, he was soft from desk jobs and restaurant meals. Where I wore jeans and work boots, he wore pressed khakis and loafers that probably cost more than most people's rent. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile perfectly practiced, and his handshake perfectly calculated to remind everyone who was the successful son. "Hello, Marcus," I replied, using his given name instead of the childhood nickname everyone else used. "It's still just Mark to you," he said with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. We sat down to pot roast and potatoes, and the interrogation began immediately. "Felix," my father started, "your mother and I are concerned about this financial situation with Maren." "What situation is that?" "Don't be difficult," my mother snapped. "You know exactly what situation. Freezing accounts, blocking access to money, it's not right." "I haven't blocked access to anything. I've just added some security measures." "Security measures?" Mark leaned forward, playing the concerned brother perfectly. "What kind of security measures require cutting off your wife's access to her own money?" "Joint money," I corrected. "And they're temporary precautions while I sort out some irregularities." "What irregularities?" Maren asked, speaking for the first time since I'd arrived. I looked at her directly, letting the silence stretch until everyone was uncomfortable. Late-night phone calls, unexplained absences, cars parked where they shouldn't be. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "That's ridiculous," Mark said quickly. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I'd taken. "This was Wednesday night at 12:47 a.m., Maren's car in your driveway, Mark." The silence was deafening. Maren recovered first. "I was returning something I borrowed. Some books." "At midnight?" "I couldn't sleep, so I decided to drive around. I remembered I had his books in the car, so I dropped them off." "Without going inside?" "Of course not. I just left them by the door." Mark nodded supportively. "That's exactly what happened. She rang the bell, handed me the books, and left. 5-minute conversation tops." I showed them another photo. "This is her car at 1:23 a.m., still in your driveway. That's a 36-minute conversation for returning books." "We talked for a few minutes," Maren said, her voice rising slightly. "About family stuff. About you, actually. I was worried about your behavior lately." "My behavior?" "You've been distant, suspicious, asking strange questions. I thought maybe Mark could give me some insight into what's going on with you." It was a good recovery, I had to admit. Turn the focus back on me. Make me the problem that needed solving. "Show them the rest," Mark said confidently. "If you're going to make accusations, show them everything." So I did. I showed them the gate logs I'd requested from the development's management company, showing Maren's car entering and leaving at various times over the past 6 weeks. I showed them the phone records highlighting the pattern of late-night calls. I showed them copies of the emergency key authorization form Maren had filled out months ago, giving her access to Mark's house. With each piece of evidence, the room grew quieter. "This doesn't prove anything," my mother said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. "It proves a pattern of deception," I replied. "It proves my wife has been lying to me about where she goes and who she sees." "Even if that's true," my father said, "it doesn't justify financial abuse." "I haven't abused anyone financially. I've protected joint assets while I figure out what's happening in my marriage." "By trapping her," Mark said, "by making sure she can't leave even if she wants to. She can leave any time. She just can't take half of everything on her way out the door." Maren stood up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this. You've made up your mind about what you think is happening, and nothing I say will change it." "Then tell me what is happening," I said calmly. "Explain the midnight visits. Explain the lies about where you've been. Explain why you need emergency access to my brother's house." She looked around the room, seeking support, but found only uncomfortable faces and averted eyes. "I'm staying at my sister's tonight," she announced. I need time to think about whether this marriage is worth saving. Good idea, I said. Take all the time you need. After she left, the room stayed quiet for several minutes. Finally, Mark cleared his throat. You know, Felix, even if there were something going on, which there isn't, this isn't the way to handle it. What would be the right way, Mark? Ask you nicely to stop pursuing my wife? I'm not pursuing anyone. Maren is a friend. She's family. When she needs someone to talk to about problems in her marriage, I listen. That's what family does. And the emergency key? She's been helping with some projects around the house while Tessa's been traveling. Interior design stuff. Woman's touch, you know? It was plausible. Almost believable. If I hadn't seen them together, hadn't noticed the way they looked at each other, hadn't caught the subtle intimacy in their body language. Well, I said, standing up. I guess we'll see how it all plays out. My mother followed me to the door. Felix, honey, maybe you should consider counseling, for both of you. Work through whatever this is. Maybe, I said, kissing her cheek. Thanks for dinner. But I was already past counseling. I was past working through anything. I was ready for war. Monday morning brought the first real escalation. I was installing cabinets at the Morrison renovation when Brady called with news. Your wife just showed up at the lumberyard with your brother, he said. They're asking Tommy about your accounts, trying to figure out how much money you've got tied up in materials and equipment. What did Tommy tell them? Nothing useful, but they seemed pretty cozy. Lots of hand-touching and whispered conversations. I set down my drill and leaned against the kitchen counter. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Looks that way. You want me to keep an eye on them? No need. Let them get comfortable. Comfortable people make mistakes. That afternoon, Maren called to inform me she'd spoken with a lawyer about her options. Her tone was different now, less apologetic, more assertive. She'd found her backbone somewhere between my parents' house and her sister's guest room. I want you to know I'm exploring all my legal remedies, she said. What you're doing isn't just wrong, it's probably criminal. What am I doing exactly? Financial coercion, marital asset manipulation. My lawyer says I have grounds for immediate court intervention. Your lawyer is welcome to try. I'd be curious to see how a judge reacts to evidence of adultery. There's no adultery, Felix. There's friendship and support, which is more than I get from my actual husband. Right, support. Is that what we're calling it? She hung up on me. That evening, I drove past Mark's house and saw Maren's car in the driveway again. This time, I didn't just take photos. I parked and walked up to the front door. Through the large windows, I could see them in the kitchen, cooking together. Maren was wearing an apron I'd never seen before, and Mark had his hand on her lower back as he reached around her for something on the counter. I knocked. Mark answered, his face cycling through surprise, annoyance, and forced friendliness in the space of 2 seconds. Felix, what brings you by? Looking for my wife. Her sister said she wasn't there tonight. She's here, he said, not moving from the doorway. We're just having dinner and talking through some things. What kind of things? Maren appeared behind him, wiping her hands on the unfamiliar apron. Hello, Felix. Nice apron, I said. New? Mark picked it out. He thought I'd like the color. How thoughtful. Mind if I come in? I'd like to talk to my wife. Mark and Maren exchanged a look. Quick, but not quick enough. Actually, Mark said, this isn't a great time. We're in the middle of a pretty intense conversation about your marriage, and I think having you here might complicate things. My marriage is being discussed, but I can't participate? It's not like that, Maren said. I just need someone objective to help me work through my feelings. And my brother is objective? More objective than you are. I looked past them into the house Mark had bought with family money and business connections I'd never had access to. The dining table was set for 2, with wine glasses and candles. Very therapeutic. Well, I said finally, Don't let me interrupt your counseling session. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, Maren, your credit cards will be working again tomorrow. I talked to the bank. Her face lit up with relief and triumph. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I opened you a new account with a $500 limit. Should be enough for gas and groceries while you figure out what you want to do with your life. The light in her eyes dimmed considerably. $500? It's a start. Prove you can manage that responsibly, and we'll talk about increasing it. Mark stepped forward. That's insulting, Felix. She's not a child. No, she's an adult who can make her own choices, but choices have consequences. I walked back to my truck, feeling their eyes on me the whole way. As I drove off, I saw them through the window again, standing close together, probably discussing what a terrible husband I was. Let them talk. Tuesday brought a new development. My mother called to inform me that Maren had asked for help with a lawyer. Specifically, she wanted my parents to pay for legal representation since I'd cut off her access to funds. She's family, Felix, my mother said. We can't just leave her helpless. She's not helpless, Mom. She has a job, remember? The part-time thing at the design center? That barely covers her car payment. Then maybe she should consider full-time work. Lots of people support themselves. Don't be cruel. I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. She made choices, and now she has to live with them. What choices? Being friends with your brother? I almost laughed. Is that what she told you? They're friends? What else would they be? Mom, I have photos of them together. I have phone records. I have gate logs showing a pattern of visits that goes back weeks. That doesn't prove anything inappropriate. It proves deception. It proves lies. It proves my wife has been living a double life. There was a long pause. Even if that's true, this isn't the way to handle it. What would be the right way? Ask them politely to stop? Talk to a counselor. Work it out like adults. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back. Adults don't lie about where they're spending their time. Adults don't create elaborate cover stories for midnight visits. Another pause. We're paying for her lawyer, Felix. She needs representation. That's your choice, but don't expect me to make this easy on anyone. Wednesday evening, I was working late in my shop when Brady stopped by with a six-pack and some intelligence. Your brother's been asking around about your business, he said, settling into the old recliner I kept for visitors. Wants to know about contracts, cash flow, equipment values. Preparing for the divorce, probably, trying to figure out what assets are worth fighting for. That's not all. He's also been talking to people about buying you out. I looked up from the cabinet door I was sanding. Buying me out? Says you might be interested in selling the business and starting fresh somewhere else, away from all the drama. Did he now? Tommy at the lumberyard said Mark offered to broker a deal, connect you with investors who might want to take over your contracts and equipment. I set down the sandpaper and opened a beer. He's trying to push me out of town. Looks that way. Get rid of the inconvenient husband, clear the field. What did Tommy tell him? That you'd built the business from nothing and weren't likely to give it up without a fight. Tommy's a smart man. We drank in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the radio and watching sawdust motes drift through the workshop lights. You know, Brady said eventually, I've been thinking about this whole situation. And? Your brother's always been the golden child, right? Always got what he wanted, always came out on top? Pretty much. So, he's not used to real resistance, not used to people fighting back. I nodded. He expects me to fold, take whatever settlement he and Maren work out, slink away quietly. Exactly, which means he's probably not prepared for a real war. What are you thinking? Brady grinned. I'm thinking it's time to show him what a real war looks like. Thursday morning, I implemented Brady's suggestion. Instead of reacting to their moves, I started making my own. First, I visited every contractor and supplier in town, letting them know that any work done for my brother needed to go through me for approval if it involved shared family assets or properties. Since our parents had put both our names on several investment properties over the years, this created immediate complications for Mark's business dealings. Second, I hired a private investigator to document Marin and Mark's relationship properly. Photos through windows and gate logs were good, but I needed professional quality evidence if this ended up in court. Third, I started attending every social event where I might encounter them together. The monthly Chamber of Commerce mixer, the library fundraiser, the high school football games. I didn't confront them or make scenes. I just appeared, smiled, made polite conversation, and watched them squirm. The effect was immediate and satisfying. At the chamber mixer, I walked up to their table just as Mark was refilling Marin's wine glass. "Evening, folks," I said cheerfully. "Mind if I join you?" The look of panic that flashed between them was worth the price of admission. "Felix," Mark said, recovering quickly. "Good to see you out and about." "Well, you know what they say. Life goes on. Can't hide in the workshop forever." I pulled up a chair and sat down uninvited. "So, what are we talking about? Business? Family? Relationships?" "Actually," Marin said, "we were just discussing some property investments. Mark's been helping me understand real estate markets." "How thoughtful. Learning about investments for the divorce settlement?" The temperature at the table dropped noticeably. "There's no talk of divorce," Mark said carefully. "We're all hoping you and Marin can work things out." "Are we?" "That's interesting because Marin's been staying at her sister's house for a week now. Doesn't seem like someone who's interested in working things out." "I need space to think," Marin said, "about what I want from my life." "And my brother is helping you figure that out?" "He's being supportive during a difficult time." "Right, support." I looked around the room, noting the curious glances from other attendees. "You know, it's funny how supportive relationships can look so much like romantic ones from the outside." Mark's jaw tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing at all, just an observation about appearances and perceptions." I stood up and smiled at both of them. "Well, I should mingle. Can't spend the whole evening monopolizing the happy couple." I walked away, leaving them to deal with the implications of that last comment. Within minutes, I could see people at other tables glancing over at them, whispering among themselves. Small towns thrive on gossip, and I'd just given them something to talk about. Friday brought the inevitable confrontation. Mark showed up at my job site while I was installing trim in the Henderson house, his face flushed with anger. "We need to talk," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "You know exactly what's on my mind. Last night at the mixer, your little performance." "I don't know what you mean. I was just being social." "You were starting rumors, trying to make something innocent look suspicious." I set down my nail gun and gave him my full attention. "Innocent? Is that what you're calling it?" "Yes, that's what I'm calling it." "Because that's what it is." "Mark, I've got photos of Marin leaving your house after midnight. I've got phone records showing daily conversations. I've got gate logs going back 6 weeks. What part of that looks innocent to you?" "The part where nothing inappropriate is happening. She's going through a rough patch in her marriage, and I'm being a friend. A friend who gives her emergency keys and cooks intimate dinners? A friend who listens when she needs to talk and helps when she needs help." I picked up my nail gun and went back to work. "Okay, let's say I believe that. Let's say this is all perfectly innocent friendship and support." "It is." "Then why all the secrecy? Why the midnight visits? Why didn't either of you mention this friendship when I asked direct questions about where Marin was spending her time?" Mark was quiet for a moment. "Because we knew you'd react exactly like this. We knew you'd twist everything into something ugly. Or maybe you knew it looked exactly like what it was, an affair." "There's no affair, Felix. There's no romance. There's no physical relationship. Just emotional intimacy, shared secrets, and romantic dinners. It's not romantic, it's supportive. I straightened up and looked at him directly. Mark, let me ask you something. If your wife was having supportive midnight visits with another man, cooking dinner at his house, calling him every night, how would you feel about it? He didn't answer. Would you think it was innocent? Would you be okay with the secrecy and the lies? Still no answer. Or would you wonder why your wife needed that kind of support from someone who wasn't you? Mark's face was getting redder. The difference is, my wife isn't emotionally unavailable. My wife doesn't make me feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. Ah, so this is my fault. I drove my wife into your arms with my terrible behavior. I didn't say that. You implied it. Poor Maren, trapped with emotionally unavailable Felix, forced to seek comfort elsewhere. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He was quiet again, probably realizing he'd said too much. Look, I said, going back to my work. You want to pursue my wife? Go ahead. You want to break up my marriage? Give it your best shot, but don't insult my intelligence by pretending it's innocent friendship. I'm not pursuing anyone. Sure, you're not. You're just being available when she needs someone. You're just being understanding when she complains about me. You're just being supportive when she talks about leaving. Mark stared at me for a long moment. You really think you know everything, don't you? I know enough. You don't know anything. You don't know what Maren tells me about your marriage. You don't know how unhappy she's been. You don't know how long she's been thinking about leaving. How long? He realized his mistake immediately. I didn't mean, how long has she been thinking about leaving, Mark? That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. So how long? Months? Years? I'm not discussing Maren's private thoughts with you. Her private thoughts that she shares with you, but not with her husband. Felix, get off my job site, Mark, and tell Maren that her $500 credit limit just got cut to $250. He left without another word, but I could see him making a phone call before he even reached his car. That evening, Maren called me, furious. You cut my credit limit again? I adjusted it based on new information. What new information? Your boyfriend told me you've been planning to leave for a long time. Sounds like you won't need much money for the transition. He's not my boyfriend, and I haven't been planning anything. Then Mark was lying? A pause. He was trying to make you understand how serious our problems are. By telling me you've been thinking about leaving? I have been thinking about it. Any rational person would, given how you've been acting. How long, Maren? What? How long have you been thinking about leaving? Mark seemed to think it was significant. Another pause. I don't know. A while. Before you started visiting him at midnight? This isn't about Mark. Everything's about Mark now. Your social life, your emotional support, your financial planning, it all runs through Mark. That's not true. Prove it. Come home. Stop the midnight visits. Stop the secret phone calls. Act like a married woman instead of a single one. I can't come home, not while you're acting like this. Like what? Like a husband who doesn't want his wife sleeping at another man's house? I'm not sleeping at his house. Then where are you sleeping? At my sister's. I told you that. Funny thing about that. I drove by your sister's house last night. Your car wasn't there. Silence. But it was at Mark's house. Again. At 11:30 p.m. More silence. So either you're lying about where you're staying or you're lying about what you're doing there. I was returning something. At 11:30 at night? What could be so urgent that it couldn't wait until morning? I couldn't sleep. I was driving around and I remembered I had his things in my car. What things? Just things. Books. A sweater he lent me. He's lending you clothes now? It was cold one evening when we were talking. He offered me a sweater. How romantic. It wasn't romantic. It was practical. Right, practical. Like the midnight book returns and the emergency keys and the intimate dinners. They're not intimate dinners. They're just meals. with wine and candles. How do you know about... She stopped herself. About the wine and candles? Because I saw them, Maren. I came looking for you, and I saw you playing house with my brother. We weren't playing house. What would you call it? I would call it two people sharing a meal and having a conversation. Two people who happen to be married to other people. One person who's married to someone else. Mark's marriage is solid. Is it? Have you asked his wife how she feels about your friendship? Tessa knows we're friends. She's fine with it. She knows about the midnight visits, the daily phone calls, the emergency keys. Silence again. You haven't told her, have you? Because you know how it would look. There's nothing to tell. Then tell her. Call her right now and explain your friendship. I'm sure she'll be very understanding. I don't have to prove anything to you or anyone else. No, you don't. But your actions prove plenty all by themselves. She hung up on me again. But this time, I was smiling when the line went quiet. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. Tessa, Mark's wife, stood on my doorstep holding a coffee cup and wearing an expression I couldn't quite read. Felix, she said, we need to talk. Tessa was everything Maren wasn't. Tall where my wife was petite, dark-haired, where Maren was blonde, direct where Maren was manipulative. She worked as a pharmaceutical sales rep and traveled frequently, which explained why I hadn't seen her around during Maren's visits to Mark's house. Come in, I said, stepping aside. Coffee? I brought my own. She held up her travel mug. This won't take long. We sat in my living room and she got straight to the point. I know about the midnight visits, she said. I know about the phone calls. I know about the cozy dinners. How long have you known? Since Tuesday. I came home early from a business trip and found evidence of recent entertaining. Wine glasses in the sink, candles burned down, 2 plates in the dishwasher. When I asked Mark about it, he said he'd had dinner with a friend. Did he say which friend? He was vague, but I pressed, and eventually he admitted it was Maren. How did you react? I asked why he was having intimate dinners with his brother's wife while I was out of town. And he said that it wasn't intimate. That she was going through marriage problems and needed someone to talk to. I nodded. The supportive friend story. Right. So I asked him how long this had been going on, and he said a few weeks. Then I asked him why he hadn't mentioned it before, and he said he didn't want me to get the wrong idea. Did you get the wrong idea? She smiled grimly. I got exactly the right idea. My husband is having an emotional affair with his brother's wife, and they're both too cowardly to admit it. What are you going to do about it? That depends. What are you going to do about it? I studied her face, trying to gauge her intentions. What do you mean? I mean, are you planning to fight for your marriage, or are you planning to let them have what they want? What do you think I should do? I think you should make them face the consequences of their choices. Both of them. And if I do that, what happens to your marriage? My marriage is already over. I just haven't decided how to end it yet. We sat in silence for a moment, both contemplating the wreckage of our respective relationships. Tessa, I said finally, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think they're sleeping together? She considered the question carefully. Not yet, but they're headed that way. All the emotional groundwork is there, the secret conversations, the shared intimacy, the us against the world mentality. The physical part is just a matter of time. How much time? Not long. Maybe they're waiting for one of us to file for divorce first, so they can tell themselves they didn't break up marriages. Or maybe they're waiting for me to give up and leave town. Is that what they're expecting? Mark's been asking around about buying out my business, wants to help me start fresh somewhere else. Tessa laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course he does. Get rid of the inconvenient husband, clear the path. The thing is, I'm not going anywhere. Good. Neither am I. So, what do you propose we do? We make them choose, publicly. Force them to either commit to their marriages or admit what they're really doing. How? Leave that to me. I have an idea. Sunday evening, I learned what Tessa's idea was. She called to invite me to a dinner party at her house, a small gathering to celebrate Mark's recent business success. The guest list included my parents, Maren, several of Mark's colleagues, and me. "It'll be interesting," she said, "to see how they handle being in the same room with their respective spouses and a bunch of witnesses. You're playing with fire, Tessa. Good. It's time someone got burned." The dinner party was scheduled for the following Saturday, which gave me a week to prepare. I spent the time gathering more evidence and planning my approach. The private investigator I'd hired delivered a comprehensive report on Maren and Mark's activities, complete with time-stamped photos and detailed observations. The pattern was clear. They were behaving like a couple in everything but name. Grocery shopping together, attending movies, taking long walks in the park. They held hands when they thought no one was looking, shared intimate conversations over coffee, and generally acted like people in the early stages of a romantic relationship. What they didn't act like was a brother-in-law and sister-in-law having innocent, friendly conversations. On Wednesday, Maren called to ask if I was planning to attend Tessa's dinner party. "I wouldn't miss it," I said. "Should be very educational." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing specific. Just looking forward to seeing everyone together in one room." "Felix, I hope you're not planning to make a scene." "Why would I make a scene? It's a celebration of Mark's success. I'm happy for him." "Are you?" "Of course. Mark always gets what he wants. This time shouldn't be any different." There was a long pause. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing at all. I'm just observing that my brother has always been good at acquiring things he desires. He's not acquiring anything. If you say so, I do say so. Then I'm sure Saturday will be a perfectly normal family dinner." But we both knew it wouldn't be. Saturday arrived gray and cold, with the kind of persistent drizzle that makes everything look miserable. I dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual, nothing that would suggest I was treating this as anything other than a routine family gathering. I arrived at Mark's house exactly on time and found most of the other guests already there. My parents were in the living room making small talk with Mark's business associates. Maren was in the kitchen helping Tessa with final preparations, looking nervous and avoiding eye contact with everyone. Mark greeted me at the door with his usual forced enthusiasm. "Felix, great to see you, brother. Thanks for coming." "Wouldn't miss it. Congratulations on your success." "Thanks. It's been a good year." "I'm sure it has. You always did know how to spot opportunities." Something in my tone made him look at me more carefully, but before he could respond, Tessa called everyone to dinner. The dining room table was set for 10, with Tessa at one end and Mark at the other. I found myself seated directly across from Maren, with my parents on either side of me. Mark's colleagues filled out the rest of the table, chatting about business and local politics. For the first hour, everything proceeded normally. The food was excellent, the wine flowed freely, and the conversation stayed safely in neutral territory. But I could feel the tension building, especially between Maren and Mark, who kept glancing at each other when they thought no one was watching. Tessa was the perfect hostess, making sure everyone felt included and keeping the conversation moving. But I caught her watching her husband and my wife with the same intensity I'd been feeling for weeks. During the main course, one of Mark's colleagues asked about family dynamics. "It must be nice having your brother so close by," he said to Mark. "Do you two work together much?" "Not directly," Mark replied. "Felix has his contracting business and I'm in real estate development. Different industries." "But you stay close as brothers?" "Oh yes," my mother chimed in. "The boys have always looked out for each other." "That's right," I said, raising my wine glass. "Mark's always been there when I needed him, and apparently when my wife needs him too." The table went quiet. "What do you mean?" asked one of the colleagues, clearly sensing undercurrents but not understanding them. Just that Mark's been very supportive during some recent challenges in my marriage. Haven't you, Mark? Mark's face was carefully neutral. I try to help when I can. Help how? My father asked, looking confused. Well, I said, taking a sip of wine. When Marin needed someone to talk to about our relationship problems, Mark made himself available. Late-night phone calls, emergency visits, that sort of thing. Marin was staring at her plate, her face flushed. That's what family does, my mother said defensively. We support each other through difficult times. Absolutely, I agreed. Though I have to admit, I was surprised by how much support was needed. Multiple visits per week, midnight conversations, shared meals. It's been very thorough support. Tessa spoke for the first time in several minutes. Yes, Mark's been putting a lot of energy into helping Marin work through her problems. The way she said it made everyone look at her more carefully. Perhaps, said one of Mark's colleagues, clearly uncomfortable, we should talk about something else. Good idea, Mark said quickly. Felix, how's your business going? Staying busy? Very busy, though I have been curious about something. What's that? I heard you've been asking around about buying out my contracts, planning to expand into contracting work? Mark's wine glass stopped halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you mean. Tommy at the lumberyard mentioned you were asking about my business setup, wondering if I might be interested in selling. That was just casual conversation. Was it? Because it seemed like you might be planning for me to leave town. Why would I want you to leave town? I don't know. Why would you? The silence stretched until my mother couldn't stand it anymore. What's going on here? She demanded. Why are you asking these strange questions? I looked around the table at all the faces, confused colleagues, uncomfortable parents, nervous Marin, angry Mark, and calculating Tessa. I'm just trying to understand the dynamics, I said calmly. My wife has been spending a lot of time with my brother lately, and he's been asking about my business plans. It makes me wonder if there's some kind of coordination happening. Coordination of what? My father asked. I'm not sure yet, but the pattern is interesting. Tessa leaned forward slightly. What pattern is that, Felix? Well, Marin starts having problems with our marriage and begins seeking support from Mark. Mark starts asking about my business and whether I might want to sell. Marin moves out of our house but doesn't file for divorce. Mark offers to help me start fresh somewhere else. It's almost like they're waiting for something. Waiting for what? One of the colleagues asked, drawn into the drama despite himself. For me to give up and leave voluntarily. That way they don't have to be the bad guys who broke up a marriage. The explosion came from 3 directions at once. That's ridiculous, Mark said. That's paranoid, Marin said. That's enough, my mother said. But Tessa just smiled. Is it ridiculous, Mark? Is it paranoid, Marin? Everyone turned to look at her. I mean, she continued, Felix has presented some interesting evidence, late-night visits, daily phone calls, intimate dinners while I'm out of town. From where I sit, it looks like my husband and his sister-in-law have developed quite a close relationship. Mark's face went white. Tessa, don't. Don't what? Don't mention the wine glasses I found. Don't talk about the candles. Don't ask why you've been having romantic dinners with Felix's wife while I'm traveling for work. The table erupted in shocked murmurs and uncomfortable shifting. It's not what it looks like, Marin said desperately. What does it look like? I asked calmly. It looks like an affair, said one of Mark's colleagues bluntly. There's no affair, Mark said quickly. There's friendship and support during a difficult time. Friendship that requires secrecy and lies? Tessa asked. Support that looks exactly like courtship? We haven't done anything wrong, Marin said. Define wrong, I said, because from where I sit, my wife has been emotionally intimate with another man, lying about where she spends her time and planning a future that doesn't include me. I haven't been planning anything. Then why has Mark been asking about my business? Why the questions about whether I'd consider leaving town? I never said you should leave town, Mark protested. You offered to help me start fresh somewhere else. What does that mean if not leaving? It means maybe you'd be happier somewhere without all this family drama. Drama that you and my wife created. We didn't create anything. We're friends who— Friends don't sneak around, Tessa interrupted. Friends don't lie to their spouses. Friends don't have midnight rendezvous and romantic dinners. They weren't romantic, Maren said weakly. Wine and candles aren't romantic? I asked. We were just eating dinner. At 11 p.m.? After lying to your husband about where you were going? The fight went out of her suddenly. She looked around the table at all the staring faces and seemed to realize how her behavior appeared to everyone else. I think, said one of Mark's colleagues, standing up, we should probably go. Thank you for dinner, Tessa. Within 5 minutes, all the business associates had made their excuses and left, leaving only family at the table. My father was the first to speak. Mark, is this true? Have you been having an affair with Maren? There's no affair, Dad. There's no physical relationship. What about emotional relationship? My mother asked quietly. Mark and Maren looked at each other across the table, and in that look, everyone saw the truth. We care about each other, Maren said finally. But we haven't crossed any lines. What lines? Tessa asked. Because from my perspective, you've crossed every line except the physical one. And maybe that one too, I added. I haven't been watching 24/7. Nothing physical has happened, Mark said firmly. Yet, Tessa said. But it was going to, wasn't it? Once you got rid of the inconvenient spouses. Neither of them answered. Well, my mother said, standing up, I think we've heard enough. This is disgraceful behavior from both of you. Mom, Mark started. Just don't. You're a married man and she's a married woman, and you've been carrying on like teenagers. She looked at my father. We're leaving. After my parents left, the four of us sat in uncomfortable silence for several minutes. Finally, Tessa spoke. So what happens now? Now they decide what they want more, I said. Their marriages or each other. We want to work on our marriages, Maren said quickly. Do you? I asked. Because your actions suggest otherwise. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Multiple choices made over weeks and months. So what do you want? Mark asked. What would it take for you to forgive this? I looked at him, then at Maren, then at Tessa. I want honesty, I said finally. Complete honesty about what's been happening and what you both want. We want our marriages to work, Maren repeated. Then prove it. Cut off all contact with each other. No phone calls, no visits, no text messages. Treat each other like the in-laws you're supposed to be instead of the lovers you've been acting like. They looked at each other again, and I saw the panic in their eyes. That's not realistic, Mark said. We're family. We'll see each other at gatherings. Family gatherings, yes. Private dinners, no. Midnight phone calls, no. Emergency visits, no. You're asking us to pretend we don't care about each other, Maren said. I'm asking you to act like married people instead of single people. And if we can't do that, Mark asked, then you've answered the question about what you want more. I stood up and looked at Tessa. Thank you for dinner. It was very educational. As I walked to the door, I heard Maren call my name. Felix, wait. I turned back. What happens if we choose each other? Then you get each other, and you lose everything else. What does that mean? It means I take half of everything in the divorce. It means Tessa takes half of everything in her divorce. It means you start over with nothing but each other. And if we choose our marriages? Then you prove it by your actions, not your words. I left them sitting at the dinner table, surrounded by the wreckage of their carefully constructed lies. But I knew they'd already made their choice. They just hadn't admitted it yet. Monday morning brought the inevitable phone call from my mother, her voice tight with disappointment and confusion. "Felix, we need to talk about Saturday night." "What about it?" "That whole scene at dinner. The accusations, the confrontation. It was humiliating." "For who?" "For everyone. But especially for Mark and Maren. You made them look like criminals." "I made them look like what they are. Two married people having an emotional affair." "Even if that's true, there was a better way to handle it." "Such as?" "Private conversations, family meetings, counseling, not public humiliation in front of Mark's business associates." I leaned back in my office chair and watched Brady loading lumber from the truck outside. "Mom, I tried private conversations. I tried family meetings. Nobody wanted to hear what I had to say." "Because you were being paranoid and controlling." "Was I? Because everything I suspected turned out to be true." There was a long pause. "What do you want from this, Felix? What's your end game?" "I want my wife to decide whether she wants to be married to me or to Mark." "She's already married to you." "No, she's legally married to me. Emotionally, she's been married to Mark for weeks." "So what are you going to do about it?" "I'm going to let her choose. But I'm going to make sure she understands the consequences of each choice." "What consequences?" "If she chooses Mark, she gets him and nothing else. No house, no savings, no comfortable divorce settlement. If she chooses me, she has to actually choose me. No more midnight visits, no more secret phone calls, no more emotional affair." "That sounds like an ultimatum?" "It is an ultimatum, because I'm done pretending this is normal marital problems that can be solved with counseling." Another pause. "Your father and I think you should consider therapy." "For what?" "For your anger, for your need to control everything, for your inability to forgive." "I'll consider therapy when Maren and Mark consider honesty." They were honest Saturday night. They were caught Saturday night. There's a difference. After I hung up, Brady came into the office carrying coffee and wearing his usual grin. "Rough conversation with the family?" "They think I should be more forgiving." "Of course they do. They're not the ones who got cheated on." "Speaking of which, any new intelligence from around town?" "Oh, you're going to love this. Your brother and wife were at Murphy's Diner this morning, having what looked like a very intense conversation." "Together? In public?" "Bold as brass, sitting in a corner booth leaning across the table, lots of hand-holding and emotional expressions." I shook my head. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Gets better. Sally Murphy said they were talking about what to do next and how to handle the situation." "Did she hear anything specific?" "Something about lawyers and property division and making a clean break." "Sounds like they've made their choice." "Sounds like it. What's your next move?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Ms. Lawton's number. Time to make some legal preparations of my own. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer to discuss divorce strategy and asset protection. Ms. Lawton had reviewed all the evidence I'd gathered and was confident we could prove adultery, which would affect the settlement significantly. "The emotional affair is well documented," she said, spreading photos and phone records across her desk. "The pattern of deception, the intimate behavior, the lies to both spouses, it paints a clear picture." "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means Maren's claim to marital assets is severely compromised. Maine still considers adultery in divorce proceedings, especially when it comes to property division." "And the house?" "The house is in your name only, purchased before the marriage. She has no claim to it." "Bank accounts?" "Joint accounts will be split, but given the circumstances, you'll likely get a larger share. Plus, you've already protected most of the liquid assets." "What about her lawyer?" "I know who she hired. He's competent but not aggressive. He'll push for a standard 50-50 split and hope we don't press the adultery angle too hard." "Will we press it?" "As hard as necessary to protect your interests." I felt a grim satisfaction as I left the lawyer's office. Maren and Mark thought they were planning their future together, but they were actually planning their financial ruin. That evening, Tessa called with an update on her own situation. "I filed this morning," she said without preamble. "Divorce papers?" "Divorce papers, restraining order, and a motion to freeze all joint assets until the settlement." "How did Mark react?" "He doesn't know yet. He'll be served tomorrow at his office." "That should be interesting. I'm also moving out this weekend. I found a furnished apartment downtown." "Need help with anything?" "Actually, yes. I want to make sure Mark doesn't try to hide or move any assets before the court orders take effect. Can you keep an eye on his house for the next few days?" "Absolutely." "And Felix?" "I think you should know. I hired a forensic accountant to go through our finances. If Mark's been moving money around to prepare for his new life with Maren, we'll find it." "What happens if you find something?" "Then he loses a lot more than half of everything." Wednesday brought chaos. Mark was served with divorce papers at his real estate office in front of clients and colleagues. According to Brady's sources, he turned white, started shouting about false accusations, and had to be escorted out of the building by security. An hour later, he showed up at my job site, wild-eyed and furious. "This is your doing," he said, storming into the house I was renovating. "What's my doing?" "Tessa's divorce, the restraining order, the asset freeze. I didn't file anything against you, Mark. You turned her against me. You poisoned her with your paranoid theories. I didn't have to turn her against you. She figured out what you were doing all by herself. Nothing happened between Maren and me. Keep telling yourself that. It's true. We're friends. We care about each other. But nothing physical happened. What about emotional? What about the lies? What about the secret relationship you've been hiding from both your spouses? That's not illegal. No, but it's grounds for divorce, and it's grounds for an unfavorable settlement." Mark's face was getting redder by the minute. "You orchestrated this whole thing. You and Tessa planned it together. Tessa and I are both dealing with cheating spouses. We compared notes. We're not cheating. You're having an emotional affair. You're planning a future together. You're lying to your spouses and sneaking around like teenagers. Call it whatever you want, but don't pretend it's innocent. What do you want, Felix? What's it going to take to end this?" "End what?" "The legal attacks, the financial warfare, the public humiliation." I set down my hammer and looked at him directly. "I want you to leave my wife alone. She doesn't want to be left alone. Then she can file for divorce and pursue you openly, but she doesn't get to have both, a marriage with me and a relationship with you. What if she chooses me? Then she gets you and nothing else. What does that mean? It means no house, no savings, no comfortable settlement. It means starting over from scratch. You can't do that. She's entitled to half of everything." "She's entitled to half of everything if she's been a faithful wife. Adultery changes the equation." "There's no adultery." "Prove it in court." Mark stared at me for a long moment, probably realizing for the first time that his actions had real consequences. "This isn't over," he said finally. "No, it's not. But it will be soon." That evening, Maren called for the first time since the dinner party disaster. "Felix, we need to talk." "About what?" "About ending this insanity. About finding a way forward that doesn't destroy everyone." "I'm listening." "Mark and I have been talking." "I'll bet you have." "We've been talking about the situation, and we think there's a way to resolve everything amicably." "What kind of resolution?" "A clean divorce. No accusations, no fault-finding. Just a simple dissolution of marriage." "And then what?" "Then we all move on with our lives." "You mean you and Mark move on with your lives together?" "We care about each other, Felix. That's not going to change." "At least you're being honest now." "I'm trying to be fair to everyone." "Fair? You call having an emotional affair and then demanding a no-fault divorce fair?" "I call it realistic. Our marriage was failing anyway. Mark just helped me realize what I really wanted." What you really wanted was my brother. What I really wanted was someone who understood me. And I didn't understand you? You understood the version of me you wanted to see. Mark understands who I really am. I felt something cold settle in my chest. And who are you really, Maren? I'm someone who deserves to be happy. At everyone else's expense. Not at everyone else's expense. Just, sometimes people grow apart. Sometimes they realize they're not compatible. Sometimes they realize the grass looks greener somewhere else. This isn't about greener grass. This is about genuine connection. Right, genuine connection. Is that what you call sneaking around and lying? We didn't want to hurt anyone. So you thought you'd just gradually transition from my wife to his girlfriend without anyone noticing? We hoped we could find a way to be together without destroying our families. By destroying your marriages instead? By ending marriages that weren't working anyway. My marriage was working fine until you started your midnight visits to Mark's house. No, it wasn't. You just didn't want to see the problems. What problems? We never talked anymore. We never shared anything meaningful. We were like roommates, not lovers. So you found someone else to share meaningful conversations with. I found someone who listened to me. I listened to you. You listened to what you wanted to hear. I was quiet for a moment, trying to process this rewriting of our relationship history. Maren, I said finally, do you remember when we got married? Of course. Do you remember what you promised? Felix, do you remember promising to forsake all others? To be faithful in good times and bad? People change, Felix. Feelings change. Promises don't change. Commitments don't change. Sometimes they have to. No, they don't. Sometimes people choose to break them, but they don't have to. So what do you want me to do? Stay in a marriage that makes me unhappy just to keep a promise I made years ago? I want you to decide what kind of person you are. The kind who keeps promises, or the kind who breaks them when something better comes along. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You made a choice to pursue my brother. Now you have to live with the consequences. What consequences? If you want Mark, you can have him. But you can't have him and half of everything I've worked for. I'm entitled to half. You're entitled to half if you've been a faithful wife. If you haven't, the court decides what you're entitled to. There was a long pause. Felix, what if I ended things with Mark? What if I came home and we tried to work things out? Is that what you want? Another pause. I want to explore all my options. That's not an answer. I want to know if our marriage is salvageable. It's not. Why not? Because you don't want to salvage it. You want to keep it as a backup plan in case things don't work out with Mark. That's not true. Isn't it? You're asking about coming home while you're still emotionally involved with him. You're talking about working things out while you're planning a future with someone else. I'm trying to make the right decision. No, you're trying to make the safe decision. You want to see how the divorce settlements shake out before you commit to anything. That's not fair. It's realistic. And it's exactly what I expected from someone who's been lying to her husband for months. I haven't been lying. You've been lying every day. Every time you said you were somewhere you weren't. Every time you claimed you were just friends. Every time you acted like a wife while planning to be someone else's girlfriend. Felix, make your choice, Maren, but make it honestly, and live with the consequences. I hung up before she could respond. Outside, Brady was loading tools into the truck, getting ready to head home. He looked up as I came out of the house. Rough conversation? She wants to explore her options. What options? Whether to divorce me from Mark or stay married to me as a safety net while she figures out what she really wants. What did you tell her? I told her to make a choice and live with it. Think she will? Eventually. But first, she's going to try to find a way to have everything she wants without giving up anything she's got. That's not how life works. No, it's not. but it's going to take her a while to figure that out. Brady grinned and slammed the tailgate shut. Good thing you're patient. I'm not patient anymore. I'm just waiting for them to finish digging their own graves. How deep do you think they'll go? As deep as it takes to bury themselves completely. As I watched Brady drive away, I realized that was exactly what I was counting on. Thursday morning brought news that changed everything. Tessa called at 7 a.m., her voice tight with controlled fury. The forensic accountant found something, she said without preamble. What kind of something? Mark's been moving money for 3 months. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts, but it adds up to over $40,000. I sat up straighter in my kitchen chair. Where did it go? Offshore account, set up in February, right around the time his midnight visits with Maren started getting regular. He was planning this that far back? Gets better. The account is set up for 2 authorized users. Want to guess who the second one is? My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. Maren? Bingo. Your wife has been helping my husband steal marital assets for months. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my stomach. That's not just adultery, that's fraud. That's felony fraud. And it changes everything about both our divorce cases. What do you mean? I mean, when people steal marital assets to fund their affair, they don't get to keep anything in the divorce. Not half, not a quarter, not a dime. Are you sure about this? I'm meeting with my lawyer in an hour to file criminal charges. You might want to call yours. After Tessa hung up, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone. Maren hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd committed crimes. She and Mark had been planning their future together while systematically stealing from their spouses. I called Ms. Lawton and explained the situation. This changes everything, she said immediately. If we can prove Maren participated in moving marital assets to fund an extramarital relationship, she loses all claim to any property. All of it? All of it. Houses, bank accounts, retirement funds, business assets, everything. The court doesn't look kindly on people who steal from their spouses to finance affairs. What's our next step? We file an emergency motion to freeze all remaining assets and demand full financial disclosure. Then we let the criminal investigation proceed while we protect your interests. How long will this take? The criminal case could take months, but the civil case will move faster once the fraud is established. I spent the morning calling my bank, my accountant, and my business insurance company, making sure every asset I controlled was locked down tight. By noon, Maren wouldn't be able to access a penny of our joint money. At 2 p.m., Brady came into the office with a huge grin on his face. "You're going to love this," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "What now?" "Your brother just got arrested." "What?" Tessa's criminal complaint moved fast. The police showed up at Mark's office an hour ago and walked him out in handcuffs. For the financial fraud? For the financial fraud. Apparently, when you steal $40,000 from your spouse to fund an affair, the district attorney takes it seriously. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process this development. What about Maren? Word is she's next. They want to question her about her role in moving the money. Where is she now? Last I heard, she was at your parents' house, crying and claiming she didn't know anything about any offshore accounts. Do you believe that? Do you? I thought about all the lies Maren had told over the past months, all the careful deceptions and elaborate cover stories. No, I said finally. I don't believe that at all. My phone rang. It was my mother, and she sounded frantic. "Felix, you have to do something. Mark's been arrested, and they're saying Maren is involved somehow." Involved in what? Some kind of financial crime, something about moving money illegally. And you want me to do what about it? You have to help them. You have to tell the police this is all a misunderstanding. Is it a misunderstanding, Mom? Of course it is. Mark and Maren would never steal anything. They stole my marriage. Why wouldn't they steal money? That's different. Is it? They've been lying and sneaking around for months. They've been planning a future together while married to other people. Why is financial fraud so hard to believe? Because they're family. They were family when they decided to betray their spouses. Being family didn't stop them then. Felix, please. Maren is here and she's terrified. She says she doesn't know anything about offshore accounts or moved money. What does she say she does know about? She says Mark told her he was setting up some investments for their future, but she never asked for details. Their future? She admits they were planning to be together eventually. Eventually? After the divorces were final. I almost laughed. So she admits to planning adultery but claims ignorance about the financial fraud that was funding it? She says she never touched any money. Mom, her name is on the account. She's an authorized user. She can't claim ignorance. Maybe Mark forged her signature. Maybe. We'll let the police figure that out. You have to help her, Felix. Whatever problems you two have had, she doesn't deserve to go to jail. What does she deserve? She deserves a chance to explain herself. She's had months to explain herself. She chose lies instead. She was confused. She made mistakes. She made choices, and choices have consequences. So you're just going to let them destroy her? I'm not letting anyone destroy anything. Maren destroyed herself when she decided to steal money to fund an affair. We don't know that she stole anything. We know her name is on an account containing stolen money. We know she's been planning a future with the man who stole it. We know she's been lying about everything else for months. What exactly are we supposed to believe? My mother was quiet for a long moment. She wants to talk to you. I'm sure she does. Will you talk to her? Why? Because she's your wife. No, she's not. She hasn't been my wife for months. She's been Mark's girlfriend who happens to be legally married to me. Felix, put her on the phone. There was rustling and whispered conversation, then Maren's voice, shaky and scared. Felix, you have to believe me. I didn't know about any offshore accounts. What did you know about? Mark said he was making some investments. He said he was planning for our future. What future? After we got divorced. He said he wanted to make sure we'd be financially secure. Financially secure with money stolen from your spouses? I didn't know it was stolen. He said it was his money. $40,000 that disappeared from joint accounts he shared with his wife. He said he was entitled to move his own money. It wasn't his own money, Maren. It was marital property, and moving it without Tessa's knowledge is theft. I didn't know that. You didn't want to know. You wanted the benefits without the responsibility. That's not true, isn't it? You wanted Mark. You wanted financial security. You wanted a comfortable future, but you didn't want to ask hard questions about how he was making it possible. I trusted him. You trusted him to take care of you, regardless of who got hurt in the process. Felix, please. I made mistakes, but I'm not a criminal. That's for the police to decide. You could help me. You could tell them I'm not the kind of person who would steal. What kind of person are you, Maren? What do you mean? Are you the kind of person who keeps promises because you broke your marriage vows? Are you the kind of person who tells the truth because you've been lying for months? Are you the kind of person who respects other people's relationships because you pursued a married man? Felix, so tell me, what kind of person are you? Because from where I stand, you look exactly like the kind of person who would help steal money to fund an affair. I never meant for any of this to happen. You meant for all of it to happen. You just didn't mean to get caught. What do you want from me? I want you to tell the truth. For once in the past 6 months, tell the complete truth about what you've been doing and why. I can't. Why not? Because it will make everything worse. Worse than lying to the police about financial fraud? Worse than losing everything, You've already lost everything, Maren. Your marriage, your reputation, your integrity, it's all gone. The only question now is whether you're going to add criminal charges to the list. What should I do? Talk to a criminal lawyer, tell them the truth, and pray that the district attorney believes you were just stupid instead of criminal. Felix, wait. But I'd already hung up. An hour later, Brady returned with more news. Maren just got arrested, he announced. Same charges as your brother, fraud, theft, conspiracy. Where? At your parents' house. Neighbors said there were 3 police cars and a lot of crying. What happens now? Now they both sit in jail until they can make bail, and their lawyers try to figure out how to explain away $40,000 in stolen money. Think they'll get bail? Eventually, but it won't be cheap, and it won't be comfortable. I sat back in my chair and tried to process the magnitude of what had happened. This morning, Maren and Mark had been planning their future together. Tonight, they were both in jail, facing felony charges that could send them to prison. You know what the funny part is? Brady said. What's that? If they'd just been honest from the beginning, if they'd filed for divorce and pursued each other openly, none of this would have happened. They didn't want to be the bad guys. So instead of being the people who ended their marriages for love, they're the people who committed crimes for greed. Greed and stupidity. Think they'll both go to prison? Depends on what kind of deal they can work out. If Maren really was just a passive participant, she might get probation. But Mark, he organized the whole thing. He's looking at serious time. And their relationship? Hard to maintain a romance when you're both facing criminal charges because of each other. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Tessa. Both arrested, meeting with DA tomorrow. Justice feels good. I typed back, "How are you holding up?" Better than I expected. Turns out righteous anger is very energizing. What's next? Criminal case proceeds. Civil case proceeds. They lose everything. And we rebuild. Sounds like a plan. Drinks tonight to celebrate? I looked around my office, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that had been lost and found and destroyed and rebuilt. Sounds perfect. As I locked up the office and headed home, I realized that for the first time in months, I felt genuinely hopeful about the future. Not because I was getting revenge, but because the lies were finally over. Maren and Mark had made their choices, and now they were living with the consequences. They'd chosen each other over their marriages, chosen deception over honesty, chosen theft over integrity. And now, they had each other, and nothing else. Just like I'd promised. The story was ending exactly as it should, with truth, justice, and the kind of consequences that people create for themselves when they think they can have everything they want without paying the price. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw my house that Maren would never have any claim to, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. 3 weeks later, I was installing crown molding in the Henderson house when my phone rang. It was Ms. Lawton with an update on the legal proceedings. The criminal case is moving faster than expected, she said. Mark took a plea deal this morning. What kind of deal? 2 years in prison, full restitution to both you and Tessa, and complete forfeiture of any claim to marital assets. What about Maren? That's more complicated. Her lawyer is claiming she was manipulated by Mark, that she didn't understand the legal implications of what they were doing. Do you believe that? It doesn't matter what I believe. It matters what the prosecutor believes and what she can prove. What's the likely outcome? Probation, restitution, and a felony conviction that will follow her for the rest of her life. And the divorce? With the criminal conviction, she has no claim to any marital property. The house stays yours, the business stays yours, the bank accounts stay yours. She'll be lucky to leave with her personal belongings. I set down my nail gun and walked outside where I could talk freely. Ms. Lawton, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I've been too harsh? Too unforgiving? There was a pause. Felix, your wife committed adultery and financial fraud. She betrayed your marriage and stole your money to fund an affair with your brother. In my 30 years of practice, I've seen people do terrible things to each other, but this ranks pretty high on the list. But she's going to lose everything. She chose to lose everything when she chose to betray you. You didn't make that choice for her. I could have been more understanding, more willing to work things out. Could you? Really? After the lies, the theft, the months of deception? I thought about it honestly. No, I don't think I could have. Then you did what you had to do to protect yourself. That's not harsh. That's smart. That evening I met Tessa for dinner at a restaurant downtown. She looked better than she had in weeks, rested, confident, and genuinely happy. "How are you holding up?" I asked as we settled into our booth. "Surprisingly well. I thought I'd be more devastated about my marriage ending, but mostly I feel relieved." Relieved? To know the truth. To stop pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. To stop making excuses for behavior that was inexcusable. Any regrets? About divorcing Mark? None. About how I handled it? A few. Such as, I wish I'd confronted them privately before making it public. I wish I'd given them a chance to end it voluntarily before involving lawyers and police. Would they have ended it? She considered the question. No, I don't think they would have. They were too invested in the fantasy they'd created. What fantasy? That they were star-crossed lovers whose marriages were preventing them from being happy. That they were justified in lying and stealing because they were meant to be together. Do you think they really believed that? I think they wanted to believe it. It's easier than admitting you're just two selfish people who wanted something that belonged to someone else. Our food arrived, and we ate in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Tessa spoke again. "Felix, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you still love Maren?" I thought about it carefully. I love the person I thought she was, but that person never existed. "What do you mean?" The Maren I married wouldn't have had an affair. She wouldn't have stolen money. She wouldn't have lied to my face for months while planning to leave me for my brother. So who was the person you were married to? Someone who was very good at pretending to be someone else. That must be hard to accept. It is. It makes me question everything about our relationship. Were any of her feelings real? Was any of our marriage genuine? Or was I just convenient until something better came along? Does it matter now? I don't know. Maybe not. But it makes it hard to trust my own judgment about people. You trusted me. That's different. We were both dealing with the same betrayal. We had a common enemy. Is that what they were? Enemies? I considered the question. No. Enemies would have been easier to deal with. They were just people who wanted something they couldn't have honestly, so they took it dishonestly. And now they're paying the price. Now they're paying the price. After dinner, we walked around the downtown area, past the shops and restaurants where Maren and I used to spend time together. It felt strange to be there with someone else, but not uncomfortable, just different. "What are your plans now?" Tessa asked as we stopped in front of the bookstore where Maren used to browse for hours. "Short term? Finish the Henderson renovation, start the Morrison edition, keep the business growing." "Long term? I don't know. I never planned to be divorced at 38. I never planned to start over completely. Starting over isn't always bad. No. But it's not what I expected my life to look like. What did you expect? Marriage, kids, growing old with someone who actually wanted to grow old with me. You could still have all that. Maybe. But not with someone who's capable of what Maren did. Not everyone is capable of what Maren did. How do you tell the difference? I don't know. But I think you start by being honest about what you want and what you're willing to accept. What do you mean? I mean, you spent months trying to save a marriage that your wife had already ended. You kept hoping she'd choose you over Mark, even when her actions made it clear she'd already chosen. So what should I have done differently? Nothing. You gave her every opportunity to be honest, to choose her marriage, to act like a wife instead of a girlfriend. She chose differently. And now she's facing criminal charges. And now she's facing the consequences of her choices. We walked back to our cars in comfortable silence. As I was getting ready to leave, Tessa called my name. Felix? Yeah? For what it's worth, I think Maren was an idiot to choose Mark over you. Why? Because Mark is the kind of person who steals from his wife to impress his girlfriend, and you're the kind of person who builds things that last. Thanks. I mean it. Whatever happens next in your life, you're going to be fine. You're going to build something better. As I drove home, I thought about Tessa's words. Build something better. It was an appealing idea, but it felt impossibly distant. Right now, I was still dealing with the wreckage of what had been torn down. But maybe that was okay. Maybe you had to clear away the debris before you could start building again. The next morning brought a phone call from my mother. Felix, I need to ask you something. What's that? Maren wants to see you. She's out on bail, and she wants to apologize. For what? For everything. For the affair, for the lies, for the money. She says she wants to make things right. How does she propose to do that? I don't know. She just says she needs to talk to you. What do you think I should do? I think you should listen to what she has to say. Why? Because she's your wife. Because she's family. Because everyone deserves a chance to apologize. She's had plenty of chances to apologize. She's had plenty of chances to tell the truth. She chose lies instead. People change, Felix. People learn from their mistakes. Do they? Or do they just get better at making excuses? You won't know unless you talk to her. I thought about it. Part of me was curious to hear what Maren had to say now that all her lies had been exposed. Part of me wanted to see if she was capable of genuine remorse, or if this was just another manipulation. Okay, I said finally. I'll meet with her, but not at your house and not at mine. Somewhere public. Where? The coffee shop downtown. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. 1 hour, and then we're done. I'll tell her. Mom? Yes? This doesn't change anything. I'm not getting back together with her. I'm not dropping the divorce. I'm just listening to what she has to say. I understand. But I wasn't sure she did. I wasn't sure any of them understood that some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed. The next afternoon, I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and chose a table near the back where we could talk privately, but still be visible to other customers. I didn't trust Maren not to make a scene. She arrived exactly on time, looking thinner and older than I remembered. The past month had aged her in ways that went beyond physical appearance. She looked defeated. Thank you for agreeing to see me, she said, sitting down across from me. What did you want to say? I wanted to apologize for everything. Okay, I'm listening. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust and destroyed our marriage. I know I made terrible choices that hurt everyone involved. Yes, you did. I want you to know that I never meant for things to go as far as they did. What did you mean to happen? I don't know. I was confused and unhappy, and Mark was there, and he listened to me, and it felt good to have someone understand me. So you started an affair. It wasn't supposed to be an affair. It was supposed to be friendship. Friendship doesn't require midnight visits and secret phone calls. I know that now. You knew it then too. You just chose to ignore it. She was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. Felix, I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. I know. You lied to me every day for months. You stole money from our accounts. You planned a future with another man while pretending to be committed to our marriage. I know. So what exactly are you apologizing for, For hurting me or for getting caught? For hurting you. Are you? Are you really sorry for hurting me, or are you sorry that your plan didn't work out? I'm sorry for both. At least you're being honest about something. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, she spoke again. What happens now? Now you serve your probation, pay your restitution, and live with a felony conviction for the rest of your life. I mean with us. There is no us, Maren. There hasn't been an us for months. But we're still married. Legally. The divorce will be final in a few weeks. What if I don't want a divorce? What you want stopped mattering when you decided to have an affair. People make mistakes, Felix. People deserve second chances. Some mistakes are too big for second chances. So that's it? 15 years of marriage and you're just throwing it away? I'm not throwing anything away. You threw it away when you chose Mark over me. I never chose Mark over you. Yes, you did. Every midnight visit was choosing Mark. Every lie was choosing Mark. Every dollar you helped steal was choosing Mark. I was confused. You were selfish. I was trying to figure out what would make me happy. At everyone else's expense. I never meant for anyone else to get hurt. But you didn't care if they did, as long as you got what you wanted. She started crying then, quiet tears that didn't move me the way they once would have. Felix, please. I know I made mistakes, but I still love you. No, you don't. Yes, I do. You love the security I represented. You love the idea of having a backup plan in case things don't work out with Mark. But you don't love me. That's not true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have betrayed me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have stolen from me to fund an affair with my brother. I made mistakes. You made choices, and now you have to live with them. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? What about consequences? What about taking responsibility for your actions? I am taking responsibility. No, you're trying to minimize the damage. You're trying to find a way to keep some of what you had while still getting what you wanted. I just want my life back. Your life is what you made it. You chose to destroy your marriage, and now you're divorced. You chose to commit fraud, and now you're a convicted felon. You chose to betray everyone who trusted you, and now no one trusts you. So there's no possibility of redemption? No chance to make things right? You can make things right by accepting responsibility, serving your sentence, and building a new life based on honesty instead of lies. What about us? There is no us. There's you, dealing with the consequences of your choices, and there's me, building a new life without you. Felix. Maren, I want you to understand something. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt anymore. I'm just done. Done? Done pretending we had a marriage worth saving. Done making excuses for your behavior. Done hoping you'll become someone you're not. Who do you think I am? I think you're someone who wants what she wants, regardless of who gets hurt. I think you're someone who lies when the truth is inconvenient. I think you're someone who takes what doesn't belong to her and then makes excuses about why it's okay. That's not who I am. It's exactly who you are. It's who you've been for months. People can change. Can they? Can you? I want to try. Then try. But try somewhere else, with someone else. I'm done being your practice partner for personal growth. I stood up to leave. Felix, wait. What? What if I told you I ended things with Mark? What if I told you I chose you? I'd say you're about 6 months too late. It's never too late. Yes, it is. You made your choice when you started lying to me. You made your choice when you started stealing from me. You made your choice when you decided my brother was more important than your husband. I was wrong. Yes, you were, and now you get to live with being wrong. I walked away, leaving her sitting alone at the table, crying into her coffee. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't expected: relief. Not because I'd gotten revenge, not because she was suffering, but because it was finally over. The lies were finished, the pretending was finished, the hoping for something that was never going to happen was finished. Maren had made her choices, and now she would live with them. Mark had made his choices, and now he would serve his prison sentence. And I would build something new, something honest, something that would last. As I pulled into my driveway to my house, that would never be threatened again, I realized that Tessa had been right. I was going to be fine. Better than fine. I was going to build something better. The story was over. The real life was just beginning, and for the first time in months, that felt like something worth looking forward to.